Boom, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, April 5th, and this week, higher pay myths, AV goes food delivery, and the future of rideshare. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. And of course, with me, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney of Legal Rideshare, Bryant Greeting. Bryant, happy Friday.
Jared, happy Friday. Great to be back.
Yes, we're trying some new stuff today, so a little wonky off the top, but we are now on Twitch. We're streaming on Instagram and a few other platforms as well. So we are expanding, we are growing, Bryant. It's a new day, new technology.
It is. It feels good. I want to say hello to everybody on Twitch. It's our first time here. So, I feel like a rock star in a new venue.
Right? All the young hip gamer kids, they're all going to be watching us now and be like, what are these guys talking about? They're crazy. But
Right.
that's fine. That's what we want. A lot of good conversation this week. Again, of course, Minneapolis is still in everyone's mind, and we will talk about them, and we'll get to that. But the first story, which we've always, I guess, assumed is the best way to put it, but now there's data behind it. Story number one: paying drivers more does not equal higher fares. So Uber's classic threat has turned out to be false, and this came from Truth Out, and they reported, quote, "Our team analyzed over 1 billion rideshare trips, comparing 4 years of data in Chicago and New York. These are the two biggest rideshare markets in the U.S. If Uber's argument was true, fares should have gone up more in New York after the pay standard took effect. In fact, the opposite happened. Over the 4 years we studied, Uber and Lyft raised fares by 54% in Chicago, where drivers have no pay protections. In New York, they only increased fares by 36%. The reality just doesn't match Uber's scare tactics." So basically, Brian, not only was paying drivers more did not equal more money, but obviously, as we know, the places where there were no pay protections, it went up anyways.
Right. Yeah, I think this is just evidence that Uber will say what it needs to say to get its political and financial ends met. Uber does this every time that there's some bill that is being considered to increase the pay scale, to give drivers better protections, whatever it may be. If they don't want it to happen, they try to scare the passenger into thinking, uh-oh, your fare's about to go way up. This service is going to become way more expensive. You're not going to be able to afford it, or if you decide to use it, it's going to hit you really hard. Seeing numbers like this just establishes that Uber is in fact using scare tactics to meet its ends, and there's not really any support to it. I think that it's not crazy to think that Uber, when they were initially making those arguments, planned on increasing fares or thought that that's what would happen. But as the data comes in, that's not how the company reacted. That's not what they decided to do. And yet they have continued to make those arguments each step, each jurisdiction. Every time one of these things comes up, that's the argument they make. And they obviously know that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't small data here. This isn't, we asked, 200 drivers what their pay was versus what we pay. They actually found the two markets they could get the data, which was Chicago, which is great, and they analyzed 1 billion trips. Now, they do go into this article to explain, well, what is the possible explanation? And the answer was, well, there's only one thing that fits the data: pressure from Wall Street. And they actually go into a lot of detail in this article about how that pressure from Wall Street is likely the answer, because the stock price went up. They're actually generating revenue for the first time, and fares are going up. So just like you said, Brian, I don't think it was ever a matter of, oh, we need to do this now. I think they knew they were going to do this because it was the only way they were going to make money.
Right. Well, Uber's always following the dollar. So whatever they can do to try to put more money in their pockets, which means paying drivers less, not providing protections that most employees or workers have, that's the path they're going to go down. And we've seen that as their MO since the very beginning. So whatever argument they can make to try to achieve those goals, and in particular, try to scare the community, the passenger, into thinking that those sorts of actions are counter to their, what's beneficial to them. I think that's the plan that Uber will continue to employ time after time after time, like they've done the past decade. It'll probably do a decade in the future.
Yeah, totally. I don't. They're not going to revert this, and if anything, we're just going to probably see more of it. But it's great to see articles like this. They expose it with data. I think it's really important and very transparent. Something that these companies are not. Um, so that's great. We're going to head into the second article here, which is interesting. Again, something we've talked about a lot, which is really actually shocking me that it's pursuing this way. But Uber Eats goes AV, so food delivery in Phoenix gets a lot more automated. And this is from Fast Company, and they reported, quote, Uber Eats will start delivering some orders in the Phoenix area via Waymo's autonomous vehicles on Wednesday, expanding on a multi-year partnership that already includes the self-driving car shepherding passengers around town. Customers who have their food delivered by Waymo will receive an in-app notification to take their phone outside to unlock the vehicle and pick up the items ordered. Users who place an order where autonomous delivery is available will be also able to opt out of the tech at checkout if they prefer to have a courier deliver their food. So again, Brian, we have discussed this so many times, and we have often said it's not ready for prime time. It sounds like they don't care.
Here it is.
Here it is.
Welcome to the big show.
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing again is Uber and other tech companies pushing this autonomous vehicle technology on us way faster than is responsible. Waymo is out there already doing rides without without drivers in the cars. They're using the technology now with Uber to deliver food, and ultimately, who's going to pay the price for that? It's the community with technology that's not safety vetted. It's not ready. We've seen accidents, we've seen injuries, and we're the guinea pigs. So this is the wave of the future. This is going to happen. But I don't want to see our communities, our city streets being the piggy or the guinea pigs for their technology. Let's put them in the desert, put them somewhere where people are not, create fake cities. Let's get this really vetted before we put people in harm's way.
Yeah, it doesn't. What's really concerning is that we're hearing a lot about they're deploying this, but we have not heard a lot about the solutions to the issues that were already happening and are still happening, especially with the self-driving cars with passengers. Sometimes they just stop. I mean, I've seen even something as simple as like a couple months ago, the Tesla autopilot, where it just flew out of control and cranked at the speed at 100 miles an hour. So that's the concerning part. Like you said, they're just saying, well, it's good enough. We're just going to throw it out there. I don't know if you've heard anything at Legal Rideshare as far as anyone reaching out about these cases. I can't imagine it won't be long until we do hear about these cases.
Well, we're already preparing for it. We've already started looking into the laws and looking into regulations and insurance. And when these accidents start to become commonplace, which they will because more of these cars are getting on the road, we're going to be here ready to serve the community who is injured as a result. So it's not something that I look forward to, but it's a reality that I expect.
Right. That's kind of what your slogan always is. We don't want something to happen, but if something does happen, we're here to support, we're here to help, which is all we can do. And our final story this week is I'm titling it Minneapolis After Uber. So what does Minneapolis look like after Uber leaves? And this is an article from NPR, and they reported, quote, Uber and Lyft have promised to end service in Minneapolis on May 1st because of a dispute with the city over driver pay. The situation leaves drivers with uncertainty over how to make a living and what comes next. One of those drivers, his name is Farhan, who has been driving for Uber and Lyft in Minneapolis since 2018. He said that working for them helps support his 3 children and wife and has allowed him the freedom to be able to choose his hours to better juggle life and work. If Uber and Lyft leave within weeks, him and other drivers may explore roads less traveled, basically working for startup apps. And then the article goes in to talk about, there's a few. One of them is Move, MMOV. It's a rideshare app, which has been about 900 users have signed up for so far. 600 are drivers. There's also the driver cooperative, which we've talked about, and another app called HICH. So, Brian, it is this is still on everyone's mind that it's the standoff again. It's the standoff with Uber saying we're out of here. I don't know your opinion on this, but I feel like versus some of the other exits, this is getting a lot more attention than I expected it to, and it's also getting a lot more opportunity than I expected to with these companies.
Yes, Uber and Lyft are really digging in their heels and they're saying they're going to go. I am still pessimistic that that's going to happen. You know, we'll see what they do, but that's a big market to leave, and it's a lot of money on the line to just take one of the biggest cities in the Midwest and say we're no longer going to serve it. So if they go, what we're seeing, thankfully, are plenty of other companies ready to step up for opportunities for drivers to provide the service for passengers. We are familiar with, with a lot of these companies. We've talked with a lot of their founders. We've worked with them over the years, and I know that their apps are ready to go. It's not going to take much for them to get implemented into Minneapolis if they need to. I think what the potential hiccups can be would just be the onboarding of drivers. That can take a little bit of time, and the consumers actually downloading the app and starting to use it. But if Uber and Lyft leave town, people are going to adapt quickly because the taxi industry just really isn't there, can't really solve this problem. It's not big enough to provide all the rides that people need. There's going to be a huge demand, and people are ready to react. So I can see Uber and Lyft leaving as a big mistake for them in the future because eventually they'll be back. And when they are back, their market share is going to be smaller because there will be a lot more competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen this in some of the rideshare groups. I follow Molda and some of the other Minneapolis rideshare groups, and so they've been posting some of this. So Uber is really, as they've done before, of course, they're really starting to hit the apps and protest in app. And in this article, they also talk about that Uber has launched a lobbying campaign and a website called BringRidesBack.com, which prompts riders to email Minnesota legislators to pressure them to keep the service. So they are really, I don't know if they're I think they maybe were caught off guard that this actually finally passed, but they are really going full guns blazing to try to stay here. But it
This is
doesn't seem like it matters.
Well, it really is. It's right out of their playbook. They've done this before. They did this in California. They've done this in Seattle. Any place that is about to pass a measure or does pass a measure, they go right into the communication mechanisms with their customers. They email, they go in app, they send push notifications. Any way that they can get in front of their riders, and like we were talking about with the first story, try to scare them into siding with Uber. That's how they handle these situations. And a lot of times, unfortunately, they're successful because this propaganda goes right in front of the passenger. They think that they're acting not only in their own best interests, but a lot of times the companies couch it in a way that says protect your drivers. This is going to be bad for the working class if we leave town. Well, you know what's bad for the working class is if you refuse to pay them a living wage and refuse to provide them benefits that they're entitled to. So this trickery, this deception, this propaganda, it is their playbook. It's how they react every time, and hopefully the community is smart enough to see that, and the politicians, the ones that decided that this was a necessary action to take to protect their workers, they see it also, and they don't fall victim to this pressure campaign that Uber's putting on them.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think they're going to, which is great. And yeah, and just to remark on what you had talked about with the driver paying the work, that same driver had mentioned that just recently when he was working for Uber, he said he worked 4 hours and made $54. Now he's obviously not even including what the gas and expenses that came with that. And he says a lot of times people forget that half of your time is sitting in the car, trying to wait for rides. You're burning money, you're burning time doing that. I'd be really interested to see, and I'm kind of excited to really see what happens with some of these other rideshare apps like Rides, which gives 100% of the fee to the drivers, and the Co-op, which gives it's run by the drivers. Maybe they'll have a solution that finally kind of stops this pillaging of drivers, where they actually get paid what they're supposed to, but then the company also makes money. Because that's always the argument. Well, only one can make money, and I don't think that's accurate. I think someone's going to figure out a correct model on this thing.
Yeah, and I think there's more than one solution. What Uber and Lyft are doing is obviously not the correct solution for the working class. It's the correct solution for Wall Street and for the billionaires who run the company. But what we're seeing with some of these other smaller companies that are really just trying to get an opportunity to present their view to the marketplace is, subscription models or opportunities for drivers to share an ownership of the company. Or, there's a variety of ways in which it can work where both the driver and the company can have equal fair shares of the profits that come in. And whichever way or ways you want to go about it is great. And I'm excited to see them in practice in Minneapolis if Uber and Lyft give them that opportunity by packing up their bags and leaving.
Yeah, likewise. It's going to be very interesting this week in rideshare in the first week of May, Brian. I'll tell you that much because we're going to start seeing what happens, which is fascinating.
Absolutely.
And obviously we hope for the best for drivers, and we don't want the idea here is that people are stepping up in time. So I do think I think ultimately it's going to go well either way. So before we head off into the weekend, though, Brian, I will give you the final say.
Yeah, as always, we remind everybody going into the weekend that we are here for any thing that happens on the road. If you're injured, if you find yourself in an accident, we are here to provide free consultations. We represent drivers, passengers, victims. If you have medical bills, pain and suffering, lost wages, give us a call. We're happy to talk through it, figure out the best way to set you up for a solid legal claim. Cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and hopefully put some money directly in your pocket as quickly as possible. LegalRideshare.com is the best way to find our contact information, so don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. And as I like to say, that is the end of this week in rideshare. See you next week.